Hey guys, Argent here, the character profile of Jesse Pinkman. Now Jesse's an interesting character. He kind of gave me a lot of trouble when I was trying to do a character profile of him. Because he's kind of more enigmatic than a lot of the other characters in the series. It's really hard to know how Jesse feels, what's kind of going on inside of his head. He's still kind of young and very much impressionable. And his exact nature is a lot more kind of mercurial than Walt's is. Walt, I don't think, really changes throughout the series that much. He more or less kind of comes in to be the man he was meant to be, or kind of the man he had the potential to become. Jesse, though, changes a lot throughout the series, and yet kind of remains the same. Jesse and Walt I kind of see as moving in opposite directions, or kind of being opposites who kind of meet each other in the middle and then go each way. I think in contrast to Walt, Jesse doesn't really desire power. He wants money only as far as money can buy him stuff. Walt likes money for its own sake. Walt likes power for its own sake. Jesse really only wants them because he thinks it can buy him a good time, that it can help him to have friends, that it can do stuff like that. He doesn't really seem to like money for its own sake. He's a lot more kind of sentimental than Walt. Like, he's willing to pretty much forego having any money left just to buy back the house that his grandmother left him. His aunt left him. So Walt kind of starts off as kind of a normal person who has kind of a normal life. Ironically enough, I kind of think the life that Jesse ultimately would like. I get the impression very strongly that what Jesse would probably like is to get married and have children. I feel, though, he doesn't really know how to pursue this, and he doesn't really know how to describe what it is that he wants. But I think you can see that desire there and how he really wanted to have a committed relationship with Jane. He wanted to run off with her, presumably marry her and have kids to her. And then the next woman he was drawn to had a child, and he is kind of shown throughout the series as really liking children. Walt, on the other hand, hates children. He doesn't seem to value his life or having a son or anything like that. And he really only seems to get pleasure and enjoyment from the criminal part of the enterprise, whereas Jesse actively doesn't seem to like the criminal enterprise yet, and eventually kind of becomes a depressed mess as a result of it. Walt has his breakdown largely in a response to losing his position as a drug kingpin, whereas Jesse's breakdown comes from gaining a position as a kingpin. So that's kind of how I see the character. So let's kind of go through a bit of Jesse's past and what made him the way he is. So Jesse kind of is very easy to relate to, particularly for people my age, because he really seems a product of kind of postmodern child raising. You get the impression that his parents kind of gave up on him, that they really just didn't understand the times, and that they were kind of just these incompetent, self-indulgent baby boomers who couldn't really understand that the world has changed. They probably raised their kids in an extremely liberal way, at least raised him in an extremely liberal way, and had essentially zero influence on him. They probably told him to follow his heart. They probably told him to go and do whatever it is he wanted. When he was failing in school, they probably gave him a gold star and said, "Good job, son. You achieved something." Really, the only person that we get an impression that kind of pushed him to be better was Walt. And Walt kind of becomes a surrogate father figure for Jesse because he really, strangely enough, was the only person who seemed to take an interest in him. Walt may have given him bad marks, but he also saw potential in Jesse. He saw the seeds of greatness in Jesse. He saw that Jesse, no matter how much of a clown he was was actually fairly intelligent and was fairly capable. I mean, Jesse is personable. He's a good-looking guy. I think he's a lot smarter normally than he lets on. He does speak in like Ebonic Wigger speak, but at the same time, he often will just throw in like really kind of high class words. Like he'll throw in like words that show that he has a good vocabulary, or he'll say stuff in like kind of an ebonics, but in kind of like a smart ebonics way. Um, the impression I kind of get of Jesse is that he was kind of just raised in a culture that really didn't know what to do with him. I mean, he's kind of a white male who didn't have strong male role models in his life. And so the men he kind of looked to were all kind of like wiggers. They were all kind of like gangster rap, hip hop guys. And that was really the only kind of vaguely masculine culture he had to integrate with. So he more or less did integrate with that, which seems to be kind of a common theme throughout the world. I find African American culture is one of the most dominant culture forms in the world. Like if you go to Pakistan or South America or Africa, everyone's wearing like 50 cent T-shirts and have like bling and stuff. So it's hyper dominant, particularly when there's a vacuum. And the impression we kind of get of New Mexico in this is Albuquerque is just it's very kind of a cultural wasteland. The effects of illegal immigration, diversity, liberal politics, etc., have made the state very much kind of a cultural black hole. And Jesse seems to me, at least, to have been raised by parents who didn't do anything to fill the void. They didn't really seem to raise him with any sort of religious beliefs. They didn't seem to really raise him with that much in the way of moral values or ethical codes or any of that kind of thing. My guess is they kind of just let him do what he wanted, and then they kind of realized how much they failed, and then they went too far in the other direction on their second son, and just kind of pushed him excessively to succeed. So his parents kind of did the two bad baby boomer child raising tropes, the obsessive helicopter parent and the laid back parent who doesn't really intervene at all in their son's life. So that's kind of how Jesse and his brother are. But yeah, overall, I just kind of see Jesse as being kind of an ordinary guy who kind of just for whatever reason got into a bad position, and when it was unable to get out of the bad position. I mean, let's just look for a minute. He tried to go away with the love of his life to start a new life away from Walt. He tried to get a real job and stop doing his drug trade, but that was kind of denied to him because of over credentialization and bullshit like that. He attempted to kind of have a stable relationship with a woman and her son, and particularly I find as the series goes on and they get deeper and deeper into things, Jesse becomes more and more apprehensive, eventually kind of forming alliance with Hank, and Hank kind of replaces the father figure role that Walt previously held for him. So I kind of see him in that regard. I kind of see him as wanting a strong male role model, and Walt really being the only person who was there for him. Over time, though, he would come to get Mike and eventually Hank, and they started kind of steering him on the right path. But ultimately, it was just kind of too late for him. He was too damaged by everything, and he kind of got dragged down at the end. So that's kind of my view of Jesse. I hope that was interesting. I didn't really like this one that much. I just find him a very kind of difficult character to analyze, and kind of a difficult character to really put a handle on. Anyways, this is Argent Templar signing out.